What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. For those who are new, my name is Charles, also known as RMZ. Today, I want to bring you up to speed on what's been going on in my GLP-1 journey and my overall health. So grab something to drink. Let's get into it. First, I'm long overdue for an update. I'm now at week 116. 116 weeks. That's wild to even say out loud. So, where am I at? I'm sitting at 194 pounds. For the past month or so, I've been kind of floating between 192 and just under 195, which is actually solid for maintenance, except I dropped a little lower than I wanted to. I'll tell you exactly why. I had oral surgery at the beginning of February, had a tooth extraction with a bone graft on a molar. And if you ever done one of those, you know what that means. You're basically on a liquid diet for about a week, smoothies and soup, whatever you can get down without disturbing the surgical site. So that's what I had to deal with for a week. And as a result, I lost weight. And that's not exactly a recipe for holding on to weight. So the scale dipped a little bit more than I would have liked. Overall, though, I'm maintaining well. I just want to get back above 195 and stabilize there. I'm working on that. In summary, I'm down 120 pounds since starting a GLP-1 over 2 years ago, and over 164 pounds from my highest weight, which was 358 back in 2015. All right, so that's the weight check. Now let's get to the good stuff. All right, so to set the stage, last year I went through 9 weeks of external beam radiation therapy for prostate cancer, 5 days a week. The treatment worked. My cancer is in remission. My PSA numbers are looking good. My last one was 0.17, so that's excellent. But here's the thing, nobody fully prepares you for the side effects that stick around after the treatment is done. During radiation, I was dealing with some serious fatigue. I'm talking, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning before going to work in order to go to the gym. I had been going to the gym before work during my entire journey on a GLP-1, and that went out the window. I switched to going after work, and even that was a grind some days. And some mornings, I get to work and just feel completely zapped, like the lights were on and no one was home. Weekend naps were mandatory for me. I figured, okay, this is my body healing. Once treatment ends, I'll bounce back. But that didn't really happen. My energy kind of stayed off. Gym visits got more and more sporadic. Libido went down. I was constantly tired, constantly waking up at 3 a.m. It was like 3 a.m. was that moment every single night. And if it wasn't 3 a.m., it was like 2:30. And oftentimes I couldn't go back to sleep. And as it went longer, the worse it got. I got in this perpetual cycle, and that started affecting and that started impacting my mental health, and it never got better. To put this in perspective, I now have not gone to the gym since New Year's. I haven't lifted a weight. I do walk while at work. I get up to stretch my legs twice a day and walk about 15 minutes each time. And that's what I've been dealing with. So back in November, I took a shot in the dark, pun intended, and asked my primary care doctor to run a testosterone panel for me. Now, my total testosterone came back at 515, which is normal according to the reference range. And that's where things get interesting because that number is almost meaningless on its own. Let's break that down real quick because if you're a guy and you've never dug into this, this is stuff you need to know. Your total testosterone is made up of three components. One, free testosterone. This is the stuff that's just floating around, not attached to anything, ready for your body to use. It's about 2% of your total testosterone. The second component is testosterone that is bound by a protein called albumin. This is loosely bound and your body can access it still. That's another 30 to 40% of your total testosterone. Those two together, the free and the albumin, that's what makes up your bioavailable testosterone. The testosterone your body can actually use. And then the third component, there is a portion that's bound by something called SHBG or sex hormone binding globulin. This is a protein your liver makes to transport sex hormones. But here's the catch, it binds so tightly to the testosterone that it essentially takes that testosterone off the table. It's locked up and unavailable for your body to use. So the higher your SHBG, the less usable testosterone you actually have circulating in your body, regardless of what your total number looks like. Now, my total T was normal at 515. My bioavailable testosterone was below range. My SHBG was high. So, on paper, if you look solely at total testosterone, I looked fine. In reality, my body wasn't getting what it needed. And here's where I need to bit for a second because this blew my mind. Reference ranges are not universal. They vary by lab. You can be normal at one lab and lower at another for the same exact results. The Endocrine Society says low is below 300. The American Urological Association says the same. The Europeans define it as being below 350. And on my Quest Lab reports, the reference range says you are normal until you drop below 250. So depending on where your blood gets processed, you might be told you're totally fine when you're actually running on empty. And this matters a lot. Also, it should be noted that everyone's optimal levels are going to be different despite where you are in the reference range. So I get referred by my primary to an endocrinologist. He reviews my lab, he hears about my cancer history, and basically wonders out loud whether I'd even be a candidate for TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy. Because there's a belief that's been floating around the medical community for decades that testosterone causes prostate cancer. That belief has been disproven. The science has moved on, but apparently a lot of doctors haven't gotten the memo and they are extra cautious about prescribing testosterone. And I think a part of that is because testosterone is a controlled substance, despite it being a natural hormone that your body produces. And a part of that is that there's still this belief that that testosterone causes prostate cancer, which it has been disproven, like I mentioned earlier. And what I found interesting is that when women come to their doctor about symptoms that they're having that may be related to their hormones, the they are treated based off of the symptoms. Men are not treated based off the symptoms. They are treated based off of what their lab says in regards to their testosterone level. And a lot of that is based off of the total testosterone instead of the components. So the very thing I need to help with the fatigue, my energy, libido, and sleep and mental health, depression is real when your hormones are tanked, by the way. That thing is being kept from me because of an outdated, disproven fear. And my endo sends me for a more comprehensive panel. Results come back. Again, my total T was normal at 589. My bioavailable testosterone came back just above the lower limit, and my SHBG was elevated again. But this report also had something that they checked called FSH, which is the follicle stimulating hormone. And that number was 31.5, which is nearly 3 times the upper limit of normal. That FSH number is the one that told the real story. FSH is what your body releases to signal to the testes to produce more testosterone in sperm. Mine were screaming at my testicles, and my testicles weren't responding because the radiation had scattered and damaged the cells responsible for that production. That combination of high FHH and low bioavailable testosterone, that's called primary hypogonadism. My testes took collateral damage from my treatment. That's not a theory, that's what the labs are showing. And here's where it gets frustrating. Before my follow up with my endo, I had a routine check in with my urologist, cancer related stuff, follow up. I took the opportunity to walk him through my labs and asked him about TRT. He told me I didn't need it, said my total testosterone was good. Then he said, and I want you to hear this clearly, that my bioavailable testosterone, my SHBG, and my FHH numbers were meaningless, inconsequential. The only number that mattered was my total testosterone. And that's not what the science says. That's not what the guideline says. And frankly, that's not what my body was telling me every single day when I couldn't find the energy to do the things I used to love. This isn't just my story. I've talked to enough men to know this is happening everywhere. I've done enough research to know that this is happening across the board. Guys are being dismissed, given the "you're within normal range" speech, and sent home to just deal with it. And then people wonder why men turn to testosterone clinics and med spas. And I want to be clear, there's nothing necessarily wrong with a testosterone clinic, as long as you have a medical provider there providing you care. So I tried to find a urologist or an endocrinologist in my area who actually specialized in men's health hormones. Couldn't find one through a regular Google search, just clinics. And getting a new specialist appointment 3 to 4 months out minimum. So I tried telehealth. One company wouldn't treat me unless I was 5 years post treatment for my cancer, despite there being no evidence that TRT causes cancer recurrence. Another would treat me, but needed a letter of approval from my urologist, the same urologist who told me my labs were meaningless. Now, one of these telehealth companies sent me in for new labs, and my total T came back down to 488. My bioavailable was down to 108, below the limit, and my FHA was slightly lower at 29.2, but still nearly 3 times higher than the normal limit. So I went looking for a new urologist. And here's the thing: I found a nurse practitioner, a woman, and while she wasn't perfect, she was willing to listen. And look, I'm going to say it again: women medical providers are the best for men. I can't say that enough. Is that has just been my experience my entire journey in health. If I get to a woman, the woman will listen. And when I pushed back on this nurse practitioner on some of her initial takes and presented her what I knew, she didn't get defensive. She said, "Let me check with one of my colleagues and get back to you." And that's all I needed. Someone willing to engage. A week later, she called me back. She reviewed everything, my labs, my imaging, my cancer treatment history, and she was prescribing me TRT, starting at a lower dose with enhanced monitoring. So I'll have to do labs every 3 months, which will include my PSA, just to make sure everything is on the up and up. Now that phone call felt like I was finally being heard. I was finding trouble getting into a finding a doctor who was knowledgeable about this stuff and up on the science. The endo that I did go to, he was 6 months out to go back in to get my to go over my labs, and it was just getting frustrating. I couldn't get an answer. I couldn't get help anywhere that I turned, and it was wearing on me. So here's where I'm at today. I'm on 0.5 milliliter twice a week testosterone siphonate. That's 50 milligrams per injection or 100 milligrams per week total. And instead of going intramuscular, I'm doing subcutaneous injection. For those who don't know the difference, intramuscular means going into the muscle. Subcutaneous means just under the skin into the fat layer. Sub-Q is smoother. It's less spiking, less crashing, no big needles. It's become the preferred method for a lot of people doing TRT. And based on what I've read and what my body has told me so far, I think it's the right call for me. I took my first dose on Thursday, the night before last. It's still early days, so I don't know what's going to come from it. I'm not going to come at you with some miraculous transformation story just yet. That's not how this works, and I'm not going to BS you, but I'm monitoring everything closely and I'll keep you updated. So that is me, TNT, terzepatide and testosterone. Now, here's what I want you to take away from all of this: know your numbers, not just the headline numbers. All the numbers, the free T, bioavailable T, SHBG, FSH, LH. If your doctor only looks at total testosterone and sends you home, that's not the end of the conversation. Advocate for yourself. If your doctor dismisses you and the science doesn't back up what they're saying, you have the right to push back. You have the right to seek care elsewhere. You are not being difficult. You're being your own best advocate. And if you're a man who's been feeling off, fatigue, low energy, mood changes, libido issues. Don't just chalk it up to getting older. Get your labs done, the comprehensive ones. And if something doesn't add up, keep pushing. I was listening to a renowned urologist who appeared on a few different podcasts talking about testosterone. And he said something that stood out to me. He said there is not a single blood test on the planet that tells you more about a man's overall health than his testosterone levels. Not one. Now, think about that for a second, because we're not just talking about your sex drive or your gains in the gym. We're talking about your heart. Low testosterone significantly raises your risk of heart attack. We're talking about your bone. Low T is tied to serious increases in osteoporosis and osteopenia. We're talking about your mental health. It's linked to a significant jump in depression rates. And here's the one that might surprise you the most. Low testosterone is associated with prostate cancer. Now, and this is important. We're not saying that it causes prostate cancer. No, we know that elevated levels of testosterone does not cause prostate cancer, but it is closely associated with prostate cancer for men who are low on testosterone. So men with low testosterone are statistically more likely to develop prostate cancer. That's not nothing. On top of all of that, it's also connected to diabetes and obesity. So when your doctor just glances at your total testosterone number, says you're fine, you might want to push back on that because this one hormone is touching virtually every system in your body. If you're going through something similar, drop it in the comments. I want to know your story. Let's keep the conversation going. As always, take care of yourself out there, and we'll catch you on the next one.